Good day to everyone watching. My name is JC and I share spiritual truth so that we can learn to worship God in spirit and in truth. Now last time I looked at the names and the meanings of the names of all the 7 churches. If you didn't watch that video, go back and watch it. It will tell you a little something about each of the churches. Today's focus, however, is only on the first church, Ephesus. And this church really does represent the first church. Why should we care about these churches? Because they pretty much show us the entirety of church history from the start until now. And that is so cool and significant because it matches up with the different eras of church history, but also because we can already see the last of these in play right now. So let's keep that in mind when we go into this study. This study represents the first church, and the name means desirable, beloved, or first. And that's what makes it so ironic that they're known for losing their first love. This is not the only aspect of them though. And that is actually the only bad thing that Jesus has to say about them. He says, you're doing a lot for me, you're doing a lot for my kingdom, but you're losing focus of the reason why you're doing it, which is out of love. They were praised for their deeds, but they were reprimanded for not doing it in love. I feel like that's the core of the message that Jesus had to this church. But before we look at the rest of what Jesus had to say to them, let's look at, where they actually came from. So the city Ephesus was actually a really big trade center back in the day. It was a thriving, wealthy city where east meets west, where trade came from all over the place. It was multi-ethnic, multicultural, and it was a coastal city, a big harbor city next to the Aegean Sea. It was actually where a river flowed out into the Aegean Sea, and it was a big center also for goddess worship. Now, I told you what the name actually means, but there's also a legend that the Amazonians were the ones who established the city, and that the city was actually named after their queen. If you don't know who they were a legendary group of warrior women from ancient Greece who supposedly were stronger than most men. That's just the start of it, because what the city is the most well known for is the temple to Diana, also called Artemis. And the biggest industry within the city, apart from trade, was actually making idols to this goddess. That's why the people of the city got so angry at the Christians coming in and saying, we don't support idolatry. We worship one God, and he says no idols. So where the Christians went, there were no more idols. So as people became Christians, the idol makers went out of business, and they were not happy about this. Now that we know about the city and we know the main message that Jesus had for them, let's look a little bit more at what specifically he said to them. When Jesus talks about this church, he actually tells us so many good things about them. So Jesus said to the people of the first church and the people of Ephesus that he sees their works. Now, to hear from Jesus, I see you, that's just the core message of his love for us, is that he sees us, he knows us. He sees their deeds and their works, but he also sees how they study his word and seek out the truth. He says that they are dedicated to studying his word. They point out false teachers, and he actually says that this is a good thing. And the truth is so important to God. He is love, but with love comes truth, because truth gives light to our situations. Jesus also says that he sees that they call out evil for what it is. That they don't just allow people to get away with lies, and that they call out the false prophets, which is, if you do that today, people will come for you and say, you are being hateful right now. Jesus is not saying this. He says that we should love the truth so much that if somebody's trying to distort it, that we call them out on what they are doing. There's a specific group called the Nicolaitans that invade the church of Ephesus, and it's linked to the first deacon, or one of the 7 first deacons. His name was Nicholas. Now Nicholas wasn't born into Judaism. He later converted to Judaism, and then from Judaism converted to Christianity. So you can already see, like, this guy has a history of just converting, and then later he converted again to paganism, or maybe back to paganism, because that's where his roots were. The thing that made the early church fathers and God have a problem with him is the fact that he mixed pagan practices with the worship of God, and he led other people into doing this. And that was something that God was not in favor of. That was something that the church of Ephesus said, we are not in favor of this. We will keep our love for God pure and only focus on Him and on serving Him and studying His word. So he came from pagan roots, and he told other people that it's okay to practice these things. And God said, no, this is not okay. I don't want my children doing this. Okay, so I told you all of that now. Now, what's the core message that we can take from this? The core message we can take is that we should always remember why we are serving God. We should serve in love, for the love of those around us and the love of God. To stay true to this first love and to hate those who are trying to corrupt it, to call out evil and to not let it take root. Even though this message is for one church in particular, we can still learn from them. And yeah, hopefully this has given you some insight. Smyrna's up next, so look out for that one.